We welcome in Sean Cunningham, who's broadcasting from his favorite restaurant in Elk Grove. Just had lunch with Sam Amick, who is contractually obligated to not appear on this show, so he will not be making a cameo appearance here with Sean Cunningham. But Sean, we appreciate you. We're thrilled to have you here on the stream for the first time. And let's start here. You kind of laid it out for some of us during the commercial break. You just happened to have the camera pointed in the right place at the right time, and you noticed something was going on.
Yeah, man. I mean, first of all, guys, good to see you, and thanks for having me on. Love talking to you guys. Yeah, it's for anyone who just pull the behind the curtain a little bit, like in this day and age in television news, like most places have people that end up doing everything. You're writing, you're editing, you're interviewing, you're carrying a camera. It's very rare these days where you find a reporter who has their own dedicated photographer and can just sit there and actually watch the game, without having to shoot their own stuff. So myself, Lena Washington, who's now departed to Phoenix in her hometown, she's still in the Tegna family, and now we have Kevin John in ABC 10. And so we all end up having to do everything. And here I am watching that game, and we don't have to totally rehash it. I think that Suns memory is such a awful one for Kings fans to go through. But that third quarter is happening, and I like to point out, Chimezie Metu had already played in that first half. But Damian Jones and Jahmias Ramsey getting off the bench when they go down 24, carry a 21-point deficit into that fourth quarter. And I start to ISO a little bit on Marvin, because I'm seeing people constantly kind of patting him on the shoulder. And at the time, I'm looking at him, and aside from, if you haven't seen the video, there's two people making out behind the Kings bench right there, which I'm just like, oh God, like I'm trying to ISO on Marvin, and you got this.
We got a still shot of it. That's great. Someone grabbed the still shot.
I mean, it's just.
I hadn't noticed that. That is.
Like it is. First of all, if you follow me on Twitter, Scott Pollard of all people happened to point it out, and I didn't want to bring attention to it because I think it just kind of speaks for itself, and I wanted to see if people would see it, but Pollard wants to know more about the dynamic love story that's going on near the Kings bench. And while I'm watching Marvin this whole time, I'm seeing like there's so much support. And the entire time I'm shooting this, I'm going, boy, not only do I feel kind of bad for him because it looks like he's frustrated he can't play. And doing some reconnaissance on that, you come to find out it's a whole different story, and that Marvin had refused to play after only appearing in one game this season. And then I had to remind myself, and I actually had tweeted it earlier in the game, which was, oh yeah, by the way, I'm sure it was just a coincidence. I want to believe that, but the Kings handed out Marvin Bagley free jerseys to people in the upper deck at one point during that game. So I don't know if that played a role. I really don't, but it's just there's a lot going on that night. Yeah, for sure.
Oh man.
So Sean, I'm trying to match up the timeline with the video, right?
Yeah.
And so you noticed something earlier and then decided to roll, or you just like saw what was going on and then decided to roll then? And what part of the game was that?
First of all, we're rolling all the time, right? So we're usually even in timeouts, I'll get shots of the benches, both benches. We're getting stuff all the time. We're archiving a lot of stuff. And at one point something had caught my eye, which was, I'm seeing guys walking up to Marvin, patting him on the shoulder. I mean, you'll see it in the video. Like that was happening even before what was caught on camera. And, they're look, and people might go, well, I've had the question, why the hell are they, supporting a guy that decided not to, enter a game and defy his coach and blah, blah, blah. And the simple answer is they're a team. That's teammates. I mean, regardless of how you feel, like you want a guy to learn from it. You want to show support. You see coaches in there. You see Lindsey Harding. You see Doug Christie showing support. So again, it's like, hey, keep your head up. We'll discuss it. Those are the types of messages that he's getting. We're a team, we're a family, XYZ. So this as I point out in the report, in the tweet that I had, this video happened shortly after the moment that I didn't see, which was him refusing to play. It trickled over into another timeout, and you see what you see in that about a minute worth of video, where you can see he's frustrated. You can see his teammates and coaches supporting him, and the rest is kind of history at this point.
That's wild.
Sean, I mean, a number of things have frustrated us about this particular story. One, it involves Marvin Bagley, which is like a constant source of frustration, unfortunately. But two, I feel like we had this story last year with Nemanja Bjelica. Now, it wasn't caught on camera, and it didn't really gain traction until after, I think it was actually after the season was over. And it's like the second year in a row now where you have a player on the team refusing to go into a game coached by Luke Walton. That feels like a problem to me.
I can see that. I can also tell you, just in 20 years of covering the Kings alone, it happens. It happens from time to time. I think Kenny Thomas actually in the Kings pregame on TV last night even cited an example of Allen Iverson with Larry Brown famously decided not to go into a game. I mean, this is just, sometimes people don't like to see how the sausage is made. There's going to be moments of unprofessionalism throughout the course of a season. Some people handle it and wear it a little bit better than others. A lot of times instances like this stay in house. So this is an unfortunate moment, and it's the latest in a long saga of things that involve Marvin Bagley that, some of which he has himself caused, some of which is beyond his control, some of which, as we've well documented, come from those that you would think would have his best interests at hand and don't. So I can understand it. There's a fatigue that comes with it. There's especially in the fan base, and a place that I like to say Twitter, where cynicism just thrives, and it's not really a real place. So, it's never really a great place to get the temperature of the room, and kind of get that feel from your fan base. And I think, nothing was more evident than when, we found out Jeff Schwartz piped off about Marvin being out of the opening night rotation. And then 2 nights later at the home opener, it's a standing ovation. So there's a difference in what happens online and what happens in reality. I think we all know that. But yes, I understand the fatigue that comes with this. How much of a patience level does an organization have with it? I know there's people, and I think I can include maybe one or two of you guys, which is like, hands are washed. We're done with this guy. We're done with it. But fortunately, businesses and organizations don't make decisions that way. And to me, I've seen it before. We've seen a lot of stuff like this before. And, guys have been able to flourish because of it. Look, no one on the Kings would say that Nemanja Bjelica was a bad teammate. No one on the Heat would say that when he went and got moved to Miami. No one on the Warriors loved the guy. Kings loved the guy. I mean, I wanted to document that when Nemanja came back, and, he got everybody coming up to him and hugging him and showing support and saying, man, we really miss you. And you can kind of see a player like that being missed on the team. The guy, at least when he does on the floor, that stretch forward, which they really don't really have right now. So, yeah, I mean, I get it. But I know that some people will have a hard time letting something like that go, and that's understandable too.
That's me.
I'm some people.
That's me.
And Sean, I'll ask you the question. Why is he still here? And I don't even mean that in the sense of just cut him, because that would be fine with me, but I understand why you wouldn't do that. But why is he here? He doesn't want to be here. The Kings have no plans for him. His agent comes and embarrasses the franchise to start the season. He does what he did yesterday. In your opinion, why the hell is he still with this group day in and day out?
Well, because they haven't found anything that makes them better. And think of it this way. Like,
but he could go home. Send him home.
But that's why organizations don't make those types of decisions. Like, again, you can argue that they have devalued his value a little bit. I was very critical when they sent the kid home last year. Like, why do that? I mean, this guy has lost not only time on the floor, but what it's like to be a professional. Like, I was critical of that move to send him home. That made no sense to me. It still doesn't. I've heard people's understanding of it, or excuse me, their what they tried to portray as a reason for doing so. That's fine. That was their way of thinking. I didn't agree with it. I think it sends the wrong message, and you're enabling soft behavior. You're enabling him to not be an adult. You're enabling him. Look, you've got a great treatment staff around you. I think, they definitely looked at trading him and maybe thought that they weren't, maybe he wouldn't be a part of the team. Who knows? Fact of the matter is, a lot changes in the NBA day by day. A whole narrative can change around your organization in a week or two. So there's that. What I've always said is, you're not good enough to throw away unproven talent. And this guy is still, you can call him a bust, and I'd probably agree with you, but he's still an unproven talent. You know that that he has talents He's still younger than what Davion Mitchell is. Think about that. The rookie of this year's draft pick is older than what Marvin Bagley is. Marvin is very much behind the 8 ball because of injuries. A lot of this is no fault of his own. He still plays hard. I think he works hard. I think he's, for the most part, very well liked. And yeah, I think we could all agree a fresh start would be in his best interest. But think about it if you're the Kings. If you can have conversations and you can try to pull a deal, but unless you're getting better, why make a deal? It isn't addition by subtraction. These are reasons why you're among the laughingstock in the NBA and 15 seasons without playoffs. You need things to work out. You need to do your due diligence. Think of it this way, guys. And I know this isn't the fault of Monty McNair, but you didn't get anything for Willie Cauley-Stein. You didn't get anything for Papagiannis, who's out of the league. You didn't get anything for Bogdan Bogdanovic. That trade not only fell through and was investigated for tampering with Milwaukee, but then when he goes to Atlanta, you basically turned down the ability to have a first-round pick that would have turned into, realistically, 2 second-round picks. You turned that down. So you didn't get anything for Bogey. That's a bad look. That's a very, very bad look. With Marvin, look, I don't look at this latest instance as a deal breaker. And think of it this way, as our friend James Ham has pointed out several times this year, at the end of the year, let's pretend Marvin gets to the end of the season and is a Sacramento King. Mm-hmm. Well, he could be a restricted free agent. And if he falls below that starting metric, he'd be only $6.5-7 million as opposed to $14.5 million, meaning that if you wanted to retain his rights, you could match that, whatever the qualifying offer is, whatever. It's just economics, right? And then at that point, too, even if you don't, let's just say hands wash, you move on. Right now, on paper, Marvin Bagley, if you don't want anything to do with him, could be more valuable as an expiring contract at $11 million as opposed to getting a second-round pick or whatever you can get back in return. And the good news is it's a long season, guys. We're not even a full month into this, and a lot can happen. I was talking to someone the other day.
You're sure it's not over? The season didn't end last night after the loss
right.
to San Antonio.
No, not at all. And look at how quickly things change, right? 5-5 start with the second hardest schedule in the league, right? And all of a sudden everyone's hitting the panic button because they're trying to forecast and look at this trip as if it's a done deal. It doesn't matter who your opponent is. If you go 500 on a road trip, that's pretty good. And I think some people were thinking 4-0, 3-1, and 3-1 can still happen. That'd be great. But look at the way they've played of late. The narrative has shifted in a week. And I'm going to use this example. I'm not saying Luke is on the hot seat or is going to get fired, but what if they went 0-4 on this trip? Mm-hmm. The narrative changes, and certainly coaches have been fired for less. I was mentioning the other day, I was like Michael Malone was fired at 11-13, right? Mm-hmm. After starting off on just fire that season, and then DeMarcus gets viral meningitis, and then we don't have to go down that whole road again. But he was
marching band,
Sousa, yeah. Oh, jazz conductor. That gives me a headache even thinking about it. But my point being is, all right, Luke's gone. Monty McNair said to Sam Amick, if you all read and heard the podcast, that he very much put it on Luke Walton. Said, no, Marvin not playing is Luke's decision. He has control of the roster. That is his decision. He publicly went on record as to say, and to kind of draw a line in the sand and say, no, that's Luke's decision. Mm-hmm. Showing not that, look, for all we know, Monty agrees with it. But the way he answered it was just no, that's Luke's decision to do. I put the roster together. Luke is in charge of playing time. Great. But pretend fantasy world, pretend Luke is fired by December. Things just go drastically wrong. Interim coach steps in, whoever that may be, coach out the rest of the year, whatever. We've seen it in the Malone years where we had we had an interim coach in Ty Corbin, and then George Karl's brought in, right? Just chaos, right? Same ownership still exists. So is it really that much beyond the possibility? So anyway, interim coach steps in. Is the feeling towards Marvin the same? So again, a lot can change, guys. A lot can change.
That's interesting, Sean. Sean Cunningham, ABC 10, with us here on D1 Casey on ESPN 1320 KIFM, West Sacramento on Odyssey Station, and driven by Lashers, Elk Grove Dodge. We know you still love the Kings. We love the Kings. You love the Kings, and we've got tickets for you to see the Kings against Utah on Saturday, November 20th. We got those for caller number 3 right now, 916-349-1320. We will get you all set up. Again, 916-349-1320. For those watching on Twitch and YouTube, the visual of us talking about Marvin Bagley as there is a gentleman behind you taking out the trash is not lost on us. I assure you, it very much is not. But you mentioned that scenario there about, coaching and feelings on Marvin Bagley, which gets me here. And let me also mention the Kings Beat podcast that you and James do together is phenomenal. You are far too, and James and I were talking about this like yesterday or the day before. Sean, you are far too underutilized in sports media here in the audio form or radio form or whatever. You are a tremendous storyteller. And it's fun to have you on more regularly here on ESPN 13.
Man, I need you as an agent, man. You guys are pumping me up.
I've done that before. Let's do it. We'll get you a Jordan deal before you know it.
Hey, I like this. Let's go. More trash coming, by the way.
Well, good, because I'm getting back to Marvin Bagley. How did we get to this point? You just mentioned, you just kind of gave us the scenario about Luke Walton and a potential coaching change. How did we get to this point where he's refusing to go into games?
I wish I had some clarity on that, Damian. I have some. I hate to dangle this carrot, but I think because you asked the question, there is some stuff that I'm still trying to. I can't really say what it is, but I'm trying to get some more clarity on as it pertains to that Thursday and or that Monday night and what happened. But yeah, I mean, I really don't know. I think honestly, when you look at Marvin being out of there, I think there's a sense of, look, they want to play guys that are a more defensive presence, a physical presence. We know that Marvin is behind the 8 ball and is a rather soft player at this point in his career. He's shown the ability to be rather soft. So, that's not a slam on the kid. That's just kind of facts, right? So you bring in guys like Alex Len and Tristan Thompson, you're sending a message. Like, you need a physical presence. You need that type of that goon, if you will, on your team. Marvin isn't that. Marvin's a very talented player, but he's still behind the 8 ball. So that makes sense. Also, I think there's a little bit of a sense of earn it. Like, if you're Luke Walton, can you trust him? The guy, look, it's no secret. He's had injury problems. So Luke, his ass is on the line here, guys. Like, it really is. Like, he's most people thought that he probably would have been fired last year because new GM. And this is one of the things I really give Monty McNair a ton of credit with. Now, look, I reported over the offseason that the guy that they initially wanted, Chris Finch, is coaching Minnesota. So if you don't have the guy available that you really, really want, you don't just make a change just for the sake of making a change. Plus, I think the thinking there, too, is we like the message Luke had. Like, whatever you think about Luke from a wins and losses standpoint, the player development thing is key right now. Like, it's such a – like, yeah, they want to make the playoffs, but they have so many guys that they need to develop. They need guys to learn a basketball IQ and get to a point of being professionals in this league. A team that doesn't have a lot of leadership, didn't have a lot of veteran presence, so they're doubling down on things that they liked from last year, carry it into this year, and see where you are. And, oh, by the way, this Kings organization lost their clothing. Whatever you want to say, they lost a ton of money because of the pandemic. They're not looking just to make a change to make a change. Now, if there was a move out there that they would have liked, they ultimately would have done it, But what's it hurt? Continuity can be a good thing in this league. And, I think they like what they saw from Luke. And I think I credit Monty a lot for that, because a lot of people would come in and go, I'm just going to make a change. I got to get my guy. Even if my guy's unavailable, I can bring someone in. This is still my hire. Whatever this year is, they look at is let's see what happens. Let's benefit from the continuity. Let's have a better sample size of where we are. And if Luke is let go at any point, which could happen, maybe it doesn't, Monty's the one that made the decision. So, again, if anyone thinks that Monty's getting a pass, he doesn't have his guy yet, we'll really judge him when he brings in his guy, that's garbage. This is his guy. This is his decision to bring Luke Walton back, and I credit him. I think it's among his biggest successes of his general manager stint with Sacramento. Not that it leads to playoffs and victories and things of that nature, but sometimes it's the moves you don't make that speak loudest for your organization.
Sean, let me ask you your opinion on kind of going back to Marvin Bagley. And I just, you're as close to the team as anybody, and just get your feel for it. A lot of people talk about the Marvin Bagley situation, aside from what happened on Monday night, but just the ongoing saga that is Marvin Bagley here in Sacramento. Is that something that is a distraction for this team, or do they really not care one way or another? Like, is it a distraction where they're like, Marvin's tripping, or the team is doing him dirty and they're kind of, some guys are rubbed wrong by that, or do they not care and it's just every day they go about what they normally do?
No, I think it's business as usual right now. I don't really think too much has happened. I mean, I could be wrong there, but I don't think even at this latest moment that it really derailed much. I mean, granted, Marvin didn't refuse to check in until that second half. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like maybe there was a trickle over from Phoenix into San Antonio. For all we know, Marvin, had some discussions after the game and maybe even apologized to his team, for, things of, holding himself accountable. Who knows? But the team is going to support each other. It's what they have done. I don't get any read that it's been a distraction. And the reason I say that too is I think there's probably been bigger distractions in the Marvin Bagley saga. And we all know stuff that happens on social media. We all know parents fighting with one another, or even taking shots on social media. De'Aaron's dad and Marvin's dad famously kind of trading barbs. But I think that's probably more of a thing. When the adults are acting like children. So, I honestly don't think it's been much of a distraction. I think there's a togetherness with this group. I think the fact that they've all been around each other and have familiarity, especially within the coaching staff, I think the culture is strong there. But at least right now, that's the read. I haven't seen anything that would, or heard anything that would fly in the face of that.
Sean Cunningham, ABC 10, broadcasting live from the set of Fast and Furious 10 in Elk Grove.
I think that's the Hells Angels back there.
Okay, leave them alone then. We'll just leave them alone.
I like my Starbucks setting right here. I'm good.
Lost in all of this, and I understand why. Marvin has been a very dominant, part of today's show. He's been a dominant part of the conversation. And again, I completely understand why it's kind of, stuff just rolling downhill with him and that snowball getting a little bit bigger. But Sean, the Kings stunk last night.
Sure did.
They were awful. De'Aaron had his best game. Harrison had his worst. Buddy was back in the starting lineup. He shouldn't be. Tyrese was out his second game. Like, there's bigger issues than Marvin Bagley not going into the game right now with this team.
So, okay, you said Buddy shouldn't be?
I do not think Buddy should be starting.
I agree.
Well, let me throw this at you. I don't necessarily disagree with you, Damian. I do maybe disagree with the fact that, when you're without Tyrese Halliburton, which, by the way, I don't know if you guys have heard me say this, but I think this team is completely void of playmaking outside of De'Aaron and Tyrese. I think Davion is a nice addition, but I think, honestly, the guy that they really miss and to me just made the Atlanta Hawks better was the loss of DeLon Wright. Like, I still don't really understand that trade. I think this team really lacks a playmaker, and whether it be another guard or preferably a wing position playmaking type of presence, when you already are void of playmaking and you lose Tyrese Halliburton, things just look bleak. So I have not been necessarily completely on board with the whole Tyrese and Fox, because again, they're your two strongest playmakers. Like, I kind of feel like you need one of those with the second unit, and if you don't have that, one of them has to stay on the ball or has to stay on the court at all times. You can trust Davion a little bit. I know Luke has talked about being able to trust him in stints, but I think what's bearing out is the fact that you look at Fox's struggles, and to me, people ask me, "Oh, he's bigger, right?" Yeah, he's bigger, but his shot still looks the same. I've asked a few scouts over the past few home games, like, if you ISO on Fox, what do you see? What do you see? Is it the shot? Is it the body? They go, nah, it all looks the same. I've said the same thing, so that made me feel like I was vindicated. But to me, it's him playing off ball. It's a different, like, no one wants to see De'Aaron Fox standing in the corner. You should never see that. It's a new type of role. So I think and I would caution people, like, the 10-game start to this season is very similar to last season, only yes, his shooting is like from distance is a lot worse. Like it is bad, but I think people will start to see De'Aaron have that kind of incline and that better kind of pick up the numbers, and it's bearing fruit. And I think we saw that last night with the 37 points, missed 10 shots. I mean, he was a positive for the most part, maybe not on defense. I think that's still a point of concern, but I want Buddy to be right, and they're giving him the green light. Luke said the other day, 18 threes, 18 attempts from threes, like, go for it. We love that. Green light, shoot it. I like the role Buddy's playing. I don't like when they have to put the ball in his hands and force him to be a playmaker. That's just disaster. So when you don't have Tyrese, I'm okay with Buddy being in the starting lineup. I might actually be okay with Buddy starting to begin with. I think too much gets made of the whole starting and not starting. You gotta, if for the sake of nothing else, if that keeps the ball out of Buddy's hands to try to be a playmaker, I think that's a positive.
Yeah, Sean, I ain't right with that. He needs to be on the bench. And it's not even a knock on him, but I think that's more conducive to his style of play and to the Kings style of play, right?
He's been very good, though, right? I mean, he's been very good.
His role, I agree with you on that. His role this year coming off the bench, I think is perfect. I think he's flourished in it. In the last 2 games, I don't want to, that's a super small sample size, but that's where, he's starting. Slow down back there, pal. But
it's wild in Elk Grove, boy.
It is,
man. It is wild in Elk Grove.
I'm starting to get nervous.
It's crazy, man. I told you, mean streets of EG, man. That's what it is.
No wonder you got that compound with all that security there. Jeez.
But when you put him in the starting lineup, number one, he's matched up against starting guards. That's an issue. Number two, I think that more so is where you get into problems with other people, namely Rashawn Holmes getting involved. Because then you only got De'Aaron Fox out there to play make for him and to try to help get him going. But he's not running a pick and roll that's looking for Holmes at any point. It's for him to get his shot off. Then you got Mo Harkless, who's not really involved in that either. So I feel that upsets the balance of the starting unit as well when you talk about trying to get Rashawn Holmes involved. So that's why I would start. Terrence isn't there right now, but I'd started Terrence Davis. I'd started Davion Mitchell just to put Buddy back in his most productive spot. It's not a knock on Buddy. It's not a demotion or anything like that, but you're really good at this spot. I don't want to take you out of that because now I'm losing 2 things. I'm losing Tyrese and I'm losing what I'm getting from Buddy off the bench because he's starting and not producing.
Well, and historically, too, I mean, Fox gets subbed out in the first, 4 or 5 minutes. He's basically playing the whole first quarter now as a result. So, I see your point there, Kenny. I don't necessarily disagree. I think what they're really missing is that stretch 4, and obviously Buddy stretches the floor. Your point to Terrence Davis, obviously he's not a stretch 4, but obviously will stretch the floor, even though he's terrible to start the season. So, I mean, I see it. And and what you were asking, Damien, too, I don't know what your guys' win projections were, but I tend to always skew lower because 15 seasons of non-playoff basketball will do that to you. But I have them at 37 wins. So, I figured if you're about 37 wins, you're pretty close to a 500 basketball team. And, you're coming out of a stretch where it's a really tough schedule. I mean, look at it this way. I was having a conversation the other day. Look at the Warriors. There was a lot of national media in the building for that Monday game against Phoenix. And boy, they got the good and the bad of the Kings because that first half was fantastic. And then obviously the fourth quarter is interesting. And then the third quarter is a debacle. And I remember sitting there, I'll leave the guy's name out of it for now, but he's like, I hate the Kings. I don't understand what they're doing. I'm looking at this roster. It's garbage.
You do not have to leave that man's name out. We know who it is. We heard the podcast. He's been on this show. Call him by his name.
No, you go ahead. I want to see if
Logan Murdoch.
Thank you. Okay, good. All right, my guy. So he's being very critical of them. And I go, okay, yeah, that's great. If you looked at their sky, I said, how many games have you seen? He says 1. And this was the second one. I'm like, okay, fine.
Don't pause. Goes on with that.
And this is what kills me. Logan follows that up by saying, I watched them a lot last year. I thought they were entertaining. I'm like, what part was entertaining? They were garbage last year. Couldn't stop you or I. Couldn't stop a nosebleed, whatever you want to say. And then he's watching them. he gets the good and the bad of it. And I go, and he's talking about the Warriors. So who have you watched a lot? Oh, I watched a lot of Lakers and Warriors. What do you think of the Warriors? And he starts gushing about the Warriors and say, yeah, no kidding. Have you seen their schedule? Like, look at their schedule right now and compare it to the Kings. And this is where I look like a Kings homer. But then he looks at it and he goes, damn, you're right. The Warriors ain't played anybody. Like, I said, look, the Kings have played the Jazz twice. And if you remember, they got the Jazz 3 times in less than a month's time last year and got mopped. 150 points in a regulation game? Just pasted. It was gross. So then you fast forward to this year, and granted, look, maybe some of these upper echelon teams might take it a little easy at times in the early goings of some of these games. Possibly. Kings got him at a good time, whatever you wanted. You're still getting him twice in a small sample size, and you're going to get him a third time here in the next, week or two. So that's a very difficult schedule. You had, 8 of your first 10 opponents from Western Conference, and 7 of them are all playoff teams. So this is a very tough schedule. Maybe there would be a little bit of a letdown. We've seen it. The past 3 games haven't been good. The thing that's encouraged me, Damian, though, is you look at the way Fox has played, and we used to have to say, hey, in order for the Kings to sustain success, Fox has to score 25 points or more. Well, you're not seeing that. And they had a 500 schedule during that time. They're finding ways to do it, even in a game like the Pacers, which they could have won. They couldn't hit anything. They got out rebounded. Their shooting was terrible, and they almost won that game. Phoenix, look what happens to Phoenix. You cut that lead to 3, and it's late game execution and closing out games. That's what De'Aaron Fox talked about, which was the biggest concern he had through 10 games. So you could argue that now things are starting to balance out a little bit more. I mean, I'm not really total knee-jerk reaction to a lot of what I've seen because, again, I only had him for 37 wins with the roster that currently stands. What I want to see is, where are we in December? Is Harrison Barnes still playing out of his mind? I mean, without Harrison Barnes, where's his team? These are the type of things I want to see come December. And if Harrison Barnes is still this otherworldly talent right now that we've seen, having, again, following up on the best year of his career last year and doubling down on that this year, that'll be a good sign. But I don't know if we're going to be able to chalk that up and say that Harrison Barnes is having an all-star type season.
They shoot too many threes, Sean.
I agree. I completely agree.
Too many threes.
Yeah. I mean, just look, and you know what? I mean, look, people will call me a Marvin apologist, but I understand the philosophy. I don't know if I agree with the fact that the guy can't play. Whatever the case may be, you need points in the paint. You can't just jack up all these threes. I know that's where the game is being played, but you're also not really very well suited for it. So, we'll see. We'll have a better clue as to where we are 15 games, 20 games in. Again, a lot can change week in, week out.
Kings are 16th in the league in three-pointers attempted, and 16th in the league in percentage as well. That's only 2 more than last year. One more quick thing. We were talking about Tyrese and all of this different stuff. It feels like Rashawn struggles without Tyrese. Is that an you talked about what does this team look like without Harrison Barnes? Well, see last night's game, because that wasn't the Harrison Barnes I love. I don't know who that guy was out there. But Rashawn, the whole thing with Rashawn yesterday was weird, from playing time to just his seeming lack of involvement. He seems to have a good vibe with Tyrese that for whatever reason maybe he doesn't have with De'Aaron.
Yeah, and I thought it was an interesting point that Luke was asked. I mean, Luke talked about how he has to put it upon himself as a coach to find more opportunities for Rashawn. And I don't know what you're going to do. I mean, I don't know if it's put Rashawn on the therapist's couch and see what he can do. I mean, I really don't know what the answer is there. And to me, I think I'm with you, Damian. It comes down to playmaking, sorely missing Tyrese. They have a two-man game like no other. And you're right. You don't see it. I don't know what the answer is there. Kenny probably know better than us because, he played the game. And to me, I think it's a lot of mental stuff. I think it's a lot of, you're so dependent upon these 2 playmakers. And when you don't have both of them, then what? I mean, even when Tyrese is there, when he's on the bench or when he's just not involved too much and they don't have their foot on the pedal, the half-court sets look really wonky. There's a lot of ISO, a lot of dribble, especially look, I know he's a rookie, but Davion Mitchell dribbles the hell out of the ball. There's a lot of times where the offense just doesn't flow. And I know Luke is really, really dialed in on defense, and obviously that's waned over the past week or so. But he's talking about playing with pace. He wants to see this team with their foot on the gas, and De'Aaron doesn't push it he doesn't push it that way all the time. He's the guy that will flip the proverbial switch when he wants to. And, when you're playing the likes of Alex Len and Tristan Thompson, who don't really run the floor well to begin with, there's another way Marvin might be able to fit in. So, there are some frustrations, but again, it's such a small sample size. And if you look at last year, if you're looking at Luke Walton and you're like, well, I want somebody to earn it or whatever, you're really putting a lot of stock in Alex Len and Tristan Thompson, who were two guys that were just trash last year. So you're hoping one of them, Alex, with the familiarity of the system that's around there, and then Tristan was just being that great veteran presence that's very well liked. And, maybe last year was an anomaly. I get it. They're wanting to play that physical style, and there could, if that starts to dip or wane or whatever, we'll see what happens. But there's a lot to just dissect with this team that's just very, very confusing.
You guys help me out right here, because I did a little research. I broke down some things.
I like it.
This whole Halliburton not being on the floor and Holmes going away. I just took his 3 good games from Rashawn Holmes, and I just, like I said, I don't have the synergy, but I looked at when he scored and where these buckets came from. In the Charlotte game, 1 came from Harrison Barnes, 2 from Halliburton, 2 from Fox, 3 from offensive boards. Against the Dallas Mavericks, 3 assists came from Harrison Barnes, 2 from Fox, 2 from offensive boards, none from Halliburton in that game. He was 9 of 15. In the Pelicans game, 3 came from the first one, 3 came from Halliburton, 1 from offensive boards. He was 7 of 8 from the field that game. One thing that stood out to me right there is it's a little overblown. I think that Halliburton and Holmes have this synergy that is just gone when Halliburton's not out there and Fox doesn't pass, and that's why it doesn't work. I think it's more so it goes to the playmaker thing. 3 offensive boards, 2 offensive boards in that situation. When they're attacking the basket, whether it's Fox or Halliburton or Barnes, and maybe they're trying to throw it high off the glass, Rashawn is there to clean it up a lot of the times. And when you have guys like Buddy and Terrence Davis didn't play yesterday, but guys that are just jacking up from threes, that kind of eliminates those abilities, those possibilities for him to get those dirty work type buckets. And I think that's where you miss Tyrese, because Tyrese will come off that pick and roll and attack the basket. And if it's not allowed to Halliburton, he'll get it off the glass. If he misses, Rashawn is right there to follow it up.
Well, you just said it, Kenny. Not to interrupt you, but you just said it, the pick and roll. We see Tyrese set up that pick and roll with Rashawn coming over. We don't see that a lot with De'Aaron. We don't see that a lot with Davion. We don't see Rashawn active in those types of pick and roll sets as much as you do with Tyrese Halliburton.
That's fair. Yeah, absolutely.
Sean, we appreciate you so much, man. Thanks for spending so much time with us. Get out of those mean streets of Elk Grove safely, would you? Just be careful. It sounds dicey out there.
It is. It is a ecosystem unlike many others, and I am very, very nervous. I better get out of here before dark.
Please. If you got a
music discussion,
stop by the crib, man. I got you. You can lay low over here a little bit because it's crazy out there, man.
No, I need it. I might have to swing by, and I've seen that basketball court, so I want to kind of
come get a couple shots.
Call the security guard deck and let them know Sean Cunningham may be on his way.
I'm texting right now. Let this guy Sean go through it. Thank you.
No music discussion though. I mean, I was really looking forward to it.
Yeah, so. I don't know. What do you? Are you? Well, I mean, Rick Ross's new album. Are you a Rick Ross guy? Rick Ross's new album drops next month.
I am. I haven't heard it, but like I've told you guys in the past, my playlist looks like a 16-year-old girl. I just got through the Ed Sheeran album recently, and I'm skewing a little bit more poppy at the moment. But yeah, there's I think Nas had probably my favorite hip hop album. I know everyone wants to say Drake, but I think Nas might have been my favorite hip hop album. So
Nas buried it. He did his thing. I got a question for you. Did you see the video with Jay Prince and Ye? Do you think Jay Prince had Kanye held captive?
Well, I kind of do, but I also am very intrigued at the possibility of a versus. I've always said, if you're doing verses, you're kind of like a has-been or washed up. I kind of cringe at that because I've seen some of the names and I go, oh man, John Legend and Alicia Keys might have been my favorite verses, and that wasn't even fair. But what happens if Drake and Kanye actually do a versus?
The world stops.
Ooh,
That's.
ooh. Their platform might not be strong enough for that.
Oh my God! It should be pay-per-view.
I'd
For real.
pay $5.
Yeah.
I'd buy it.
That's when you throw a party over. Like you. That's like we're inviting people over to watch the Versus.
You know, that's what they did.
Who's hosting?
That's what they did for Jeezy and Gucci in Atlanta. They had a bunch of watch parties, like in bars for their.
Yeah.
That's what would happen here.
Well, I'm down. We can make some phone calls. I'm down for this.
I was watching the E42 short, and I was like, "Yo, this is one. You have company over, and we all sit down and watch this one together."
Did we as Californians enjoy that maybe more than we should have?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Nobody else enjoyed it.
New York did not tune in.
Yeah, they were not watching.
They're just like hard pass.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean. You're killing it, man. Thank you, brother. Buddy. We appreciate you.
Got it. Thanks, guys.
Much love, Sean.